Hello everyone, Jared here, and in today's video, we're doing day 2 of our safari. So to start things off, we got up really early to make sure that we could go out to see the animals as soon as the sun rises. Let's go ahead and see what animals I can find today. As the sun started to rise up even higher, we happened to come across something really special. So right now, we are slowly chasing after a lion pack that we just spotted. Now, I realized that I just said we were following some lions, but before we actually spotted them, we happened to notice that this leopard was being chased away out of its territory by them. Apparently, it's really rare to spot one of these inside the park, so I guess I just happened to be lucky. Once the leopard was out of the way, we were finally able to focus our attention on the lions, which from appearances might be a little hard to tell are actually a male and female lion. It's just that the male lion's mane had yet to grow in. But what was truly special about this lion encounter was how close they ended up getting to us. As you can see in this footage, they just kept getting closer and closer and closer, to the point where I couldn't even focus my camera on the both of them, and had to pick just one instead. Eventually, I even swapped to my phone, so that I could point it down over the car wall in front of me. That's how close they were. If it hadn't been for that wall, I could have reached out and touched them. Although, I probably wouldn't want to. Our car, along with several others, followed this pride for a while, watching as they made their way across the road towards a herd of wildebeest in the distance. We were hoping that we'd be able to see some hunting action. Eventually, one of the lionesses that was there decided she would go ahead and try her luck scouting out the wildebeest herd, and decided to give chase to one of the wildebeests. But after just a few seconds of running, she realized that it had already spotted her, and she ended up giving up. It was really interesting to see that these lions didn't appear to be bothered by cars at all. Everything that you've seen so far has just been in the morning. It's only 9:30, so the first 3 hours of us in the park for the full day. And we still have at least another 9 hours to go. This is going to be quite the experience. And that it was, because immediately after that, we got to see a lot more lions than what we just did, as well as plenty other animals. Here's what all of that looked like. Now, it's at this point in the safari that I think it's important to mention that while I was here, the wildebeest migration was occurring. So lots of wildebeests could be found all over the horizon. Also, I happened to notice something interesting going on in the distance. This large fire, which had me quite worried at first, because I thought, uh-oh, what's going to happen to all the animals that are out here? But apparently, this is something that happens regularly every single year inside of Maasai Mara National Park. In fact, all the old grass is regularly burned each year in order to allow for new grasses to grow for the animals to eat. We actually ended up getting very close to the fire, and by very close, I mean we literally drove over it, right through the line of fire. And as you would expect, there were no animals usually inside of it. However, that wasn't always the case. You see, for whatever reason, wildebeest decided that until the fire was practically on top of them, they'd go ahead and stay pretty close to the fire. Other animals, on the other hand, didn't find that it was necessary to move away from the fire at all. Take these birds, for example, of which there are two types, the ones on top being the vultures, and on the bottom, a marabou stork. I suppose that as long as the trees don't get burned, you don't really feel that you have to move. But inside of this burnt, barren wilderness, the birds were not the only animals to take refuge in the trees. A leopard with a fresh wildebeest kill just happened to be high up inside one of the trees that we happened to pass by. I thought we were lucky with our first leopard encounter, since aside from black rhinos, they're the next most difficult thing to spot here inside the park. This really was turning out to be quite the lucky safari, especially since, according to other people who went on safaris in the past, even after 10 different safaris, they'd never even spotted one. From here on out, my safari primarily focused on just following the wildebeest migration, and the occasional accompanying groups of zebras. It didn't seem to matter to them how burnt the ground was, or how smoky the air was. They just keep on moving forward towards wherever they were going. Eventually, we found where that was. The Mara River, which the herds would have to cross as one of their many trials during their great migration. But as you can see, these waters weren't necessarily as shallow as they appear, and was capable of hiding animals that they did not wish to encounter, such as the hippos, as well as the crocodiles, which, rather fortunately for the migrating herd, were very few and far between this stay. Before coming here, I never knew that hippos actually liked to stay together in such large groups. Here's a few of those hippo shots that I took. While watching all those hippos, we were ultimately waiting for a large herd of wildebeest to go across the river, since being able to get a glimpse of that is what most people come to Maasai Mara for during this time of the year. Occasionally, we would see some of the herd go down to the water, and so we'd chase after them in the vehicle, hoping we'd get to see that precise moment when they first go across the water. But they'd all just stop the moment they get down there, have a drink, and then turn around and come back up, which was a little disappointing. What I didn't expect was what happened next, as the drivers of all the various vehicles around us started to communicate with one another via radio about how they would all line up, start their engines at the same time, and essentially herd the herd in the direction of the river in order to facilitate the crossing of the river. Apparently, this is something that the safari drivers are not supposed to be doing, so I can't really say that I recommend this. But it certainly ended up being effective. And after waiting for just a little bit, with enough cars gathered around, it was time to get this show on the road. And just like that, they began to cross the river. Let's take a minute to enjoy the sight. after the herd had finished crossing, there were a lot more vehicles that had arrived on the scene, which happened to be late to the party, and many of them wanted to recreate what had just occurred. So, a lot of vehicles decided they would try to rush towards another herd to start it all over again. But before that could happen, the park rangers finally came by and told everyone that this was not okay and that the vehicles needed to get back on the appropriate path and just watch as it occurs naturally. So everyone got off with a light warning, and with that, we were pretty much done with the great wildebeest migration for the day. And not only that, we were also pretty much done with our safari at this point. It took about an hour and a half for us to go back from the river to the gate of the national park where we started out initially, and it was here that we took a short rest stop before heading back to our campsite for the day. And while we were waiting to get on through back to our camp, some Maasai women came up to the van and tried to sell us some tourist merchandise. Oh yeah, speaking of Maasai, I'll be going to visit them at one of their villages in the next video, so I hope you look forward to it. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Thank you again for watching this video. If you liked it, please click the subscribe button down below and give the video a thumbs up. Also, please share this video as well as others from my channel to help this channel grow.